Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into something a little different.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a YouTube video, and get this.
okay.
It features a hypnotized subject who claims to have seen glimpses of humanity 300 years in the future.
Wow. That's quite a premise.
It is, and we're going to be dissecting their vision, which includes 3 potential paths for humanity.
Okay.
Some startling claims about technology's influence,
Hmm.
and even a mysterious global catastrophe from the past.
Sounds fascinating. I'm intrigued. What kind of themes are we talking about here?
Well, what's really interesting is how these visions, while extraordinary, touch upon themes we grapple with today,
Okay.
like the role of technology,
Yeah.
the potential for manipulation,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea that our choices today are shaping the future.
It's true. Those are certainly hot topics these days. So let's unpack what this subject shared
Right.
and see what insights, if any, we can glean from their unique perspective.
Sounds good. Let's start with these 3 distinct paths the subject described. The first one sounds pretty grim. A dystopian world where humans are physically deformed,
Hmm.
struggling to survive, and living only to around 35 years old.
Yikes. That's a bleak picture.
Yeah, it is. What could lead us down such a bleak path?
Well, while a dystopian future might seem like science fiction,
Yeah.
the subject's emphasis on resource scarcity and manipulation
Okay.
really resonates with present-day concerns.
It does.
Think about the accelerating effects of climate change
Right.
and the growing power of social media in shaping opinions.
Mm-hmm.
These trends, if taken to extremes, could contribute to a future where survival becomes paramount
Okay.
and individual agency is severely limited.
That's a sobering thought. The issues we face today potentially snowballing into a dystopian reality.
It is something to consider.
Okay, let's move on to path number 2.
Ah,
A technologically advanced society where humans live longer,
okay.
averaging lifespans of 86 to 87 years. Sounds promising, right?
It does, but there's got to be a catch.
Yes. The catch is that in this future,
Okay.
humans are heavily augmented with artificial organs and controlled through a network implanted in their nervous systems.
So essentially, their thoughts and actions are constantly monitored
Right.
and potentially manipulated.
Exactly. This vision raises critical questions about the trade-offs we might face as technology advances.
Like what?
Like, will we willingly surrender autonomy for longevity and convenience?
That's a dilemma I hadn't really considered.
Yeah.
The potential for increased lifespans and technological advancements coming at the cost of personal freedom.
It makes you wonder about the fine line between enhancing human capabilities
Right.
and inadvertently creating a system of control.
Yeah, and that's where the subject's perspective on transhumanism comes into play.
Okay, to be clear, transhumanism is a movement that advocates for using technology to enhance human capabilities,
Exactly.
potentially even overcoming aging and death.
Right, pushing the boundaries of what it means to be human.
Okay, that makes sense.
Hey,
Now I understand why it's relevant to this discussion.
the subject sees transhumanism as a deceptive movement, a Trojan horse designed to enslave humanity.
Wow.
They specifically link Elon Musk's Neuralink, a company developing brain-computer interfaces, to this potential for manipulation.
For those who aren't familiar, could you explain a bit more about Neuralink and brain-computer interfaces?
Certainly, Neuralink is developing implantable chips that can interact with the brain, potentially allowing for things like controlling devices with your thoughts,
Oh, wow.
treating neurological disorders,
Interesting.
or even enhancing cognitive abilities.
So it's like a direct link between our minds and technology.
Essentially, yeah,
It's both fascinating and a little frightening.
it is. While these advancements have the potential for good,
Right.
the subject raises concerns about their use for monitoring and manipulating thoughts and actions.
Yeah, I can see how that could be a slippery slope. That's a valid concern.
It is.
It sounds like something straight out of a science fiction thriller.
I know, right?
But the technology is real and advancing rapidly.
It is, which is why it's so important to be having these conversations.
This raises the question, how do we ensure these advancements are used ethically and responsibly?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's a crucial question for our time. Establishing ethical guidelines,
Okay.
ensuring transparency, and
Yeah.
fostering public discourse about the potential implications of such technologies are critical steps we can take now.
So being proactive rather than reactive.
Exactly. To shape a future where technology empowers rather than enslaves.
It's a lot to consider, but it's clear that we need to have these conversations as a society.
We do.
Before these advancements become so integrated into our lives that we lose the opportunity to question their implications.
Precisely. Now let's shift gears and explore the third path the subject described.
Okay.
A utopian society where humans are physically and mentally superior to us today,
Interesting.
possessing enhanced abilities and choosing to live as long as they desire.
Wow. That sounds idyllic.
It's a stark contrast to the first two paths, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's interesting that this seemingly idyllic future isn't driven by radical technological advancements,
Right.
but rather by a shift in consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
a reclaiming of inherent human power.
That's a key distinction. The subject emphasizes that this utopian path isn't about external factors like technology or societal structures,
Okay.
but rather about individuals recognizing their inherent potential and rejecting external control mechanisms.
So it's not about escaping the world or rejecting technology altogether,
Huh.
but rather about making conscious choices and reclaiming our power to shape our own lives and destinies.
Exactly. And this brings us to a point that weaves through all three potential futures: the importance of self-awareness,
Okay.
critical thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and informed decision-making. Whether we're facing resource scarcity,
Right.
navigating a world dominated by technology, or striving for a more utopian future, our choices, individually and collectively, matter.
That's a powerful message, and it resonates with me deeply.
It's a reminder that we're not just passive observers in this grand unfolding of the future.
Right.
We're active participants,
Yes.
and our actions have the potential to shape the world we create.
Well said. Now, let's delve into another aspect of the subject's vision that you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
A mysterious global catastrophe from the past.
Ah, yes, that's where things take a more intriguing
Right.
and perhaps controversial turn.
Indeed. The subject claimed that a nuclear event occurred sometime in the late 1700s or early 1800s,
Okay.
causing widespread devastation and submerging entire land masses.
Wow.
They even mentioned the connection to the Bermuda Triangle
Intriguing.
and suggested that certain groups migrated to Antarctica to survive. It's quite a claim.
It is, and while we're not here to validate or debunk this particular theory,
Right, of course.
it's interesting to consider how historical events, real or imagined, can shape our understanding of the present
Right.
and our anxieties about the future.
That's a great point. Whether this specific event occurred or not,
Yeah.
the idea that past catastrophes can impact the course of human history is certainly worth exploring.
Absolutely. It raises questions about the narratives we inherit,
Okay.
the information we choose to believe,
Mm-hmm.
and how these factors influence our perception of the world and our choices moving forward.
This is all incredibly thought-provoking.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive,
We have.
from three distinct paths for humanity
Right.
and the potential for technology to be both a tool and a weapon,
A double-edged sword.
to the impact of past events on our present and future. I'm eager to continue exploring these ideas further.
As am I. It's been a fascinating discussion so far.
But before we move on, is there anything else you'd like to add about these initial visions of the future?
I think the key takeaway here is that the future isn't predetermined.
Okay.
It's a tapestry woven from countless threads of choice, chance,
Yeah.
and consequence.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And while we may not be able to predict the future with certainty,
True.
we can certainly influence its trajectory
Yeah.
by being informed,
Yes.
engaged,
Yes, absolutely.
and intentional in our actions.
Well said.
Welcome back to the deep dive. As you'll recall, we're examining a fascinating YouTube video featuring a hypnotized subject and their visions of humanity 300 years from now. We've already uncovered three potential paths: a dystopian struggle,
Right.
a technologically advanced but controlled society, and a utopian society where humans have transcended their limitations.
Yes, and we've touched on the subject's belief that this utopian future isn't about some magical technological leap, but rather a shift in consciousness, a reclaiming of inherent human power.
Right.
What's fascinating is that they claim to have experienced a taste of this in their own life back in 2020.
Right, they mentioned living in a community that rejected mainstream societal norms.
Yeah.
It sounds like they were actively trying to live by the principles they believe could lead humanity toward a better future.
That's precisely it. They described choosing to live in a community that understood and exercised their inherent rights as humans, free from systems of control they saw as oppressive.
So they weren't like completely off the grid living in a cave somewhere.
No, not at all.
Okay.
What's key here is that they weren't rejecting all technology or advocating for a complete withdrawal from society.
So it's more about being conscious and intentional about how they interacted with technology and societal structures,
Yeah.
choosing what serves their highest good and aligning their actions with that understanding.
Yes, and their experience highlights the importance of information and awareness in making those choices.
Okay.
They believe that the systems of control they observed thrived on keeping people in the dark.
It's that classic strategy of keep them distracted, keep them divided, right?
Exactly.
If people are too busy fighting amongst themselves or caught up in trivial matters, they won't have the time or energy to question the bigger picture.
Exactly. But this subject believed that knowledge was power. Once people understood the true nature of these systems, they would naturally start to reclaim their sovereignty.
So it's about shining a light on those hidden mechanisms of control and empowering people to make informed decisions.
Precisely. Which brings us to a significant challenge in today's world.
Which is?
The sheer volume of information we're constantly bombarded with.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a struggle to determine what's true, what's relevant, and what aligns with our own values.
It's like trying to drink from a fire hose while being pelted with rubber duckies.
Haha, I love that analogy.
There's just so much noise and chaos, it's hard to know where to focus or what to believe. So how do we navigate this information overload? How do we develop that critical discernment this subject emphasized?
We have to become active participants in our own information consumption.
Okay.
We need to cultivate media literacy skills,
Right.
question the sources of information, and consider multiple perspectives. It's also about recognizing our own biases
Okay.
and being willing to challenge our assumptions.
So it's about becoming information detectives.
Yeah.
Learning to follow the trail, dig deeper,
Exactly.
ask tough questions, and connect the dots.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that critical thinking doesn't mean rejecting everything we hear
Right.
or becoming cynical and distrustful. It's about engaging with information thoughtfully,
Okay.
analyzing it, and evaluating its validity. It's about developing the skills to discern what resonates with our own inner truth.
It's about developing that gut feeling
Yeah.
that tells us when something is true or when we're being led astray.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that inner knowing is cultivated through self-awareness, introspection, and a willingness to question the narratives that no longer serve us.
So it's not just about analyzing external information,
No.
but also turning inward and connecting with our own intuition and values,
Exactly.
using those as a compass to navigate the complexities of the world.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we are not just consumers of information,
Right.
but creators of meaning.
Right.
We have the power to choose what we believe, how we interpret events, and what narratives we allow to shape our understanding of the world.
This is making me realize how crucial it is to be more conscious about the information I allow into my mind.
Yes.
It's like we're building the foundation for our realities brick by brick with every piece of information we absorb.
And the quality of those bricks matters.
It does.
We want to build our realities on a foundation of truth,
Yeah.
integrity, and wisdom, not on misinformation, manipulation, or fear-mongering.
Absolutely. One of the most empowering takeaways from this deep dive is that we have more control over our own realities than we realize.
I agree.
We're not just victims of circumstance,
Okay.
but we have the power to choose, question, create, and shape the future we want to see.
I couldn't agree more. It's about reclaiming our sovereignty,
Right.
both as individuals and as a collective.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we are not powerless pawns in someone else's game.
Or not.
We are the players, and we have the ability to change the rules of the game.
This is all incredibly inspiring, but I have to admit, it's also a bit overwhelming. It's like we've opened Pandora's box and unleashed a torrent of information, possibilities, and responsibilities. Where do we even begin to put all of this into practice?
That's a great question and one that deserves a lot of thought, and I'm sure many of our listeners are feeling the same way.
It can be a lot to process.
It can. It's all well and good to talk about reclaiming our power and shaping our realities.
Yeah,
But the question is, where do we even begin?
right. The scope of these ideas can feel a bit daunting.
It's true, it can feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I think the key is to remember that we don't have to overhaul our entire lives overnight.
Okay.
It's more about taking small, intentional steps
Okay, small steps.
and incorporating these principles into our daily routines and decision-making processes.
So it's a gradual shift, not a radical upheaval.
Exactly. More about making conscious choices and adjusting our course as we go.
Could you give some concrete examples? What are some simple things our listeners could start doing today to align themselves with this vision of a more empowered and conscious future?
Absolutely. One powerful practice is cultivating presence and awareness in our daily lives.
Okay.
This could be as simple as taking a few minutes each day to sit in quiet contemplation,
Okay.
connect with our breath, and observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment.
It's about creating that space for introspection, for tuning into that inner voice that often gets drowned out by the constant buzz of the external world.
Precisely. Another step could be becoming more conscious of the information we allow into our minds.
Okay, so being more mindful of what we're reading, watching, listening to?
Exactly.
Okay.
This might involve being more selective about the media we consume,
Okay.
actively seeking out diverse perspectives and questioning the narratives that are presented to us.
It's about becoming critical thinkers, not passive consumers of information.
Exactly. Recognizing that we have the power to choose what we believe and how we interpret the world around us.
And what about connecting with others?
That's important too. It's also important to remember the power of connection.
Yeah.
Our subject spoke about the importance of community, of supporting one another,
Right.
and working together to create a better future.
Yeah, there's strength in numbers, for sure.
This could involve getting involved in local initiatives, connecting with like-minded individuals, or simply reaching out to friends and family and engaging in meaningful conversations.
It's about recognizing that we're not alone in this journey. There's strength in numbers, and together we can create a ripple effect of positive change.
Absolutely. And ultimately, it's about taking action.
What kind of actions?
This doesn't have to be about grand gestures or heroic feats. It could be as simple as making conscious choices in our daily lives.
Like what?
Supporting businesses that align with our values.
Okay.
Speaking out against injustice, or simply being kind and compassionate in our interactions with others.
It's about recognizing that every action, no matter how small, has the potential to create a ripple effect, to contribute to that collective shift towards a more conscious and compassionate world.
Well said. It's about remembering that we're not just passengers on this spaceship Earth, but co-pilots with the power to influence its trajectory.
This entire deep dive has been an incredible journey filled with twists, turns, and mind-blowing revelations. I feel like we've only scratched the surface of these complex topics.
We have. There's always more to explore.
But it's definitely given me a lot to think about and even more to explore.
I agree. It's been a fascinating exploration of potential futures, the power of consciousness, and the importance of individual choice. And while some of the claims we discuss might seem far-fetched, I think the underlying message is one worth contemplating. We have more agency than we realize.
We do.
And the future is not fixed, but rather a canvas upon which we can paint our hopes, dreams, and aspirations.
Beautifully put. And to our listener out there, we encourage you to continue pondering these ideas and delve deeper into the topics that resonated with you.
Absolutely.
And consider how you might integrate these principles into your own life.
Remember, the future is not something that happens to us.
It's something we create.
Together.
So keep those minds open, those hearts connected, and those actions inspired. Until next time, happy exploring.